there's a reason why it went 100 years through Prohibition. There's a reason why that culture has stayed intact the whole time. The people love this plant, and they pushed it through all that BS, and they've made their voices heard, and that's the reason why it's here today.
Welcome everyone out to Utah in the Weeds. My name is Tim Pickett. I am the host of this great podcast in the great state of Utah. Today, our interview is with Riley Meyer, who's cultivation for Standard Wellness. He is in charge of the outdoor cultivation, and a great story, especially if you have interest in getting involved in the cannabis industry or getting involved here in Utah. Listen to this and his struggles and the hurdles that he encountered to get involved in cannabis and learn really a fine art for growing medicine here in Utah. One day, maybe, we can all get together. We can all do the gardening class and grow cannabis here in Utah for our own purposes, for medical purposes, and maybe for those who we love and care about who can't afford the medicine currently. Housekeeping, we're celebrating this month the 1-year anniversary of the Discover Marijuana YouTube channel that I do with Blake Smith and Kylie and JD and Josh. We've had a lot of great partners in this, and we are giving away something every single week. So we've already given away some gifts. We're giving away more. There's instructions on how to enter through our newsletter at utahmarijuana.org. Sign up for the newsletter, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, win stuff, win swag, win medicine. Exciting times, right? Coming up on my favorite holiday, Thanksgiving. Always look forward to this time of year and getting together with family. Family's the best, right? Okay, everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing to Utah in the Weeds podcast. I am your host, Tim Pickett. Enjoy this conversation with Riley Meyer and have a great weekend. Okay, Riley, take us all the way back to the beginning of when you first were introduced to cannabis. What made you do it? What made you get into it?
It's kind of been knowingly and unknowingly. I've been around cannabis kind of my whole life. I have family members that are very fond of the plant without
Nice.
without saying names, because it's
Sure.
a very new program in Utah, and but yeah, it's been a kind of a lifelong thing. My parents are very holistic people. We've always had a home garden. We've always been very connected to the earth. We always, try to have some sort of garden going in the backyard. And then from a culture standpoint, my friends, ever since I was probably about 16, that was my first real encounter with cannabis. And it's, we kind of grew up in that scene, that skateboard, snowboard scene. And
Right. Because how old are you?
I'm 27. So.
Okay. So it's
94.
young guy, right? Right.
Yep.
Man, all these people are just so young now. So you grew up here in Utah?
Yes. Yeah. Local, born and raised, Salt Lake City. Definitely. Yeah. But been all over the place. I went to school down in Dixie. I know all about St. George. I love it down there, but yeah, I'm local for sure.
You're local. So you get introduced to cannabis, right? In your teenage years, like kind of all of us a little bit, seems like. And then how'd you learn? Because now, from smoking a little weed in high school to what you do now, that's a long way.
Right.
It's a lot different, right? So what do you do now?
So what I do now, I am one half of the cultivation management for Standard Wellness. And the other half is my good buddy, Riley Ellis. So it's the two Rileys up at Standard. He's known as Indoor Riley, and I'm known as Outdoor Riley at the moment. But we kind of help manage the whole cultivation scene up there. But yeah, as far as starting in my teenage years and getting to this point, it definitely did not start out with me wanting to cultivate this plant. It's kind of evolved as I've become more aware of the scene and really just fallen in love with the culture. And it's not about just, smoking dope and getting high, man. It's more of like a consciousness thing. And I really just connected with the crowd of people that I would meet, people like yourself, and a lot of people in the industry, they're just open-minded, aware, conscious. They think about things and their impact. And that's just something that I really found love in and wanted to be a part of.
Did you start, like, what was your first job in the cannabis industry?
My first job was a hemp job back when the program first started. It was a part of the pilot program. I worked for a company. I helped them propagate something like 5,000 hemp plants. It was all indoor, so it was controlled. It wasn't like a field where we were just throwing seeds out there. So that really kind of showed me the side of really manicuring these plants and taking care of them and trying to get a really high quality vapable flower, if you will, out of the product instead of just going down once your season's done and just chopping it all up, turning it into biomass.
Because you want to do okay, yeah, this gets into like outdoor, indoor. What's the difference really, other than the plants grow outdoor? Do you grow different strains? Is the like process different?
Yeah, 100%. You're kind of at the mercy of Mother Nature, obviously, when you're outdoors. So whatever she presents to you is kind of the quality that you're going to get out of that plant. But you can still get really high quality flower out of outdoor just as you can indoor. It just depends on your location. Utah, I truly believe, is an amazing place for outdoor cannabis. We obviously have a very short grow season here, so it comes down to the strains, cultivars that you pick, because they have to be early finishers, right? If you want to beat that frost, then they have to be done before fall comes rolling in and freezes your whole crop. But yeah,
So an outdoor, are you I mean, is it like growing tomatoes? Like you got to wait till the frost risk is gone, or do you start these plants indoor and then move them?
Yeah.
What's
So yeah, it all depends on how you want to go about it. But at standard for our first year last year, we germinated early. So what we did, we kind of got a late start because it kind of ended up being a little bit of a Hail Mary for us this last season. Future seasons are going to be a lot more dialed, but this last season we propagated, or germinated, I should say, in early April, somewhere in that first week of April, and they had all that time inside before we threw them outside and leveled them up pot size to pot size. We started in a red solo once they were popped, red solo cup, that is, to a 1 gallon to a 5 gallon, and they ended up in big 45-gallon pots. And that first day that you can put them out is usually around May 20th, that they're good, the temperature's consistent enough to let them hang out overnight.
right? It's always like when you plant your home garden, you got to wait till Mother's Day, then you can plant. And in Utah, that seems like that's about right, mid-May. And then you're away from that frost risk. So,
right.
So you just throw a bunch of weed out in the field, all these plants, they're all out there. And no, what's the fence? What's the security situation like?
Yeah. So we're enclosed. We're dialed. Our security's awesome. So don't be trying to come. So
it's like fences, the only other one I've seen, and I haven't been to your facility, but there's fences up, there's like barbed wire at the top of the fence. It seems like it's pretty secure, but still, I mean, I guess somebody could break through the fence or something, but are you in a pretty remote area? We won't discuss like where exactly these places are really, because even though I don't think a lot of people would go there, might as well not tell the people, I mean, almost out of respect for the neighbors.
Right. Yeah.
Right. People driving by trying to figure out what's going on.
We're definitely out in the boonies, man. We're, I will say we're northern Utah, but we're out there. Good luck trying to find us, man. But, as far as like a concern for people breaking in, I mean, there's always that concern, but what those people, I feel like, wouldn't know if they're trying to come in and, clip a bud off or something. There's a whole process that goes into getting that final product off of the plant. You got to cure it. You got to dry it. You got to cure it. That takes a while. That's, in itself, 2 weeks drying usually and 2 weeks curing before it's a final product. So it's not a huge concern, but yeah, we're aware that could potentially happen.
What strains did you grow up there? What cultivars? We
We did
call
a
them,
lot.
like you guys call them cultivars, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
not strains. What is there like a real difference? I read online about this shit. It's like, um, some people really get antsy about their naming. About
right.
okay, right? Like my YouTube channel is Discover Marijuana, so I get that. But strains versus cultivars,
You,
is there a difference?
man, there's probably a lot of people that are going to cringe when I say this, but to me, no, man. And I wish I could tell you all the scientific jargon of why there is a difference, but that's not a huge concern to me. To me, the names are the same. Cultivar, strain, it's all the same. But yeah, we
What'd you
we
grow?
ran like I think it was 12 different strains. God help me on remembering these. We did a
Which
bunch
one
of
was your
stuff.
favorite?
Let's say my favorite was Purple Punch. It's a tough tie up between Purple Punch and Cushmint's. Those plants just killed it. They're great early finishers, huge buds. The aroma was crazy. I mean, you could smell us half a mile down the road. Talk about security concerns, man. You got
Right.
people driving down the freeway smelling it. All you got to do is follow your nose if you're in the vicinity, right? But
Yeah.
it was between those two for sure, Cushmint's and Purple Punch. But yeah, we had 12 of them. Yeah, it was an interesting run to say the least.
Do you was all of it smokable, or do you feel like some of it half and half? What's the
Yeah.
what's the
So
breakdown?
so with us kind of getting a late jump on this, there were some strains that aren't necessarily the earliest finishers. So we're not going to get a lot of smokable flower out of those strains, but most of them we did get a lot of smokable flower out of it. I think we ended up with something like 300 pounds of just smokable flower. The rest went to biomass. But yeah, there's definitely going to be a lot of flower hitting the pharmacy shelves for sure.
It seems like everybody's outdoor, even like a lot of indoor grows kind of finished at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you follow what everybody else is kind of doing at the time? Does that make any difference for you guys? And we're talking about Oak Bridge and
Mm-hmm.
Wholesome has stuff, Zion, Trike, right? They're all, if they have an outdoor grow, it's coming on at the same time because you're
Yeah.
only getting one harvest a year, right? In
Right.
Utah.
Right. So there's um, a term. It's called photoperiod plants. There's a difference between there's autoflower and there's photoperiod plants, and there's a reason why everybody finishes up in that. They call it croptober, and that's usually the time of year that that light cycle is changing, and photoperiod gets its name is because these plants are triggered by the amount of darkness that they are exposed to. So once the daylight schedule flips to 12 hours of light and 12 hours of dark, that's when the plant triggers and flips into flower. So depending on which strain you have will determine how quick that finishes up. Now, it could be a 45 dayer, it could be a 55 dayer, it could be a 63 dayer, it could go all the way up into, 90, 100 days, depending on super indica leaning or super sativa. That's kind of, but usually if you're growing outside and you have a quick grow season like in Utah, you're looking for those more indica dominant, quicker finishing strains.
Wow, I didn't know that it was more like your sativas, but I guess it makes sense. You've got sativas come from certain spots of the world, and indicas kind of come from certain other parts of the world. Is that how this all started?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Sativas
Right.
kind of come from more of like a equatorial range where there's super long summers. That light cycle doesn't flip until late, even if at all, if you're
Sure.
talking about somewhere like Ecuador, that never flips. So yeah, that's where sativa kind of comes from, is that closer to the equator. And then your indicas are, like your Afghanistan or places with higher latitude or even lower below the
Yeah.
equator. So
Do you next year you're going to what do you think? You're going to double your production, you're going to, add another 50%. Is it more about quality next year or more about both quality and amount quantity?
it's always about quality, man. Always. So with this year, like I said, it was kind of a Hail Mary. We kind of slapped it together, but it worked out really well. But yes, future plans, we plan to double, if not a little bit more. But in Utah, we are limited to our canopy space. So we do have our indoor facility coming up. The future of Standard Wellness cultivation is very bright, man. We have a 48,000 square foot indoor facility that's going up, totally tailored to indoor cannabis, that we're just really going to be trying to churn out the most quality stuff that we can. But as far as outdoor goes, it's really, you can only set it up in the best way to combat Mother Nature. And where we're at, it gets really windy. We actually saw a fair amount of rain this season for Utah. Usually we're really dry, but we did get some weather this year. But yeah, we do plan on doubling that canopy space and really going for a high quality product as always.
Do you feel like a farmer, or do you feel like a craftsman, or like, what do you feel like when you're growing cannabis? Because it doesn't seem like it's normal farming.
Oh yeah.
Right? You're doing a lot more work to these plants, especially if you want to make them smokable or vapable.
Mm-hmm.
There's versus biomass?
100%. Yeah. No, that's a great question, because you are a farmer in the sense that you're doing like serious labor. Like you feel like, a man's man out there just throwing dirt around, sweating all day. But yeah, there's the whole kind of connoisseur side that goes into it as well. There's selective defoliation. You're topping these plants to keep them at a certain height and get so many heads off, like so many colas rather off of these plants. So you're really trying to tailor it in to get that very specific product by the end of the season. Yes.
That's the difference between like growing biomass and growing like flower.
Yeah. Biomass is like you're cruising around with that, what are those fertilizer things for the lawn that just spit out all the fertilizer? Yeah, you're just cruising with those, fill it with seeds, and then at the end of the season when it's done, just go chop it down like you're mowing the lawn kind of vibe. Whereas this is like, yeah, it's under a microscope the whole time, really trying to make sure that you get the most smokable flower out of it as possible. Because if you are geared towards the smokable flower, you can really work backwards from that product. All the other products kind of come from that. Whereas if you're going for biomass, you're kind of pigeonholed into what you can do with it, right? Like you can only make distillate or gummies or all that good stuff. I'm not knocking it. That's awesome stuff. But if you go for flower, it just adds the amount of products that you can work with.
Going backwards from that, because you've got the highest quality plant, the flower. I mean, I don't know, to be honest, I don't know a lot about the difference between, vaping. Well, that's not true. I know the difference between, ditchweed and craft grade flower.
That's good. That's good.
So, and I think patients expect, especially nowadays, I feel like patients expect a high quality product when they're vaping it. And when you vape it, you can taste it.
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. So the lower the quality, the worse it's going to taste too. And the effects kind of be different. So are you growing everything up there organic? Do you support, how does this organic thing work?
Yeah. Organic and salt based. That's kind of the big, people have their opinions on what is preferred, what makes the better product. But if you were to ask me, if you go for organic, usually you're going to get a more full experience from the plant. You're going to get more terpenes. Usually your trichome coverage is better, but you're kind of lacking on your yield and just vigor in the plant. I want to say when you're growing with salt-based nutrients, you just get beasts. You just get huge plants. And with that said, we are salt-based mostly at the moment. I did do about half of our crop outside amended soil. We went with the peat moss base, and I added a bunch of stuff like, crustacean meal, blood meal, bone meal, azomite, oyster meal, all these good amendments to really just get this nice base. And then all you need to give that is just pH water, right? Keep it at that 6.0, make sure the plant's happy. That's what they love. But then the other half, we went with a salt-based nutrient and pumped them up. And we really saw a big difference in size of plants as well as quality. So that's something that we kind of did as a little R&D, which is working better, which is worth our while, which direction do we want to go in. But yeah, we did a little bit of both for sure. Each strain, a little bit of both.
When you're, are you kind of you consider yourself a flower snob, or like you're only a flower consumer? I don't know. How much of this do you want to talk about? You know, you being a cannabis patient.
Yeah, all of it, man. Yeah, I am a patient, and I do consider myself a cannabis, a flower snob for sure. I do love my flower, man. Really don't go for anything else. When I'm looking to get my medicine, I'm always looking at the flower, just because I feel it's kind of more of a all encompassing experience. You know, it's not like you're picking and choosing which cannabinoids or which terpenes you want in your product. You're more so getting the full experience. And I also feel personally that I can kind of control my dosing a little bit better when I'm using flour. Whereas if you're dealing with something like a crumble or a shatter or some solventless, it's really geared towards being a more potent medicine.
So you can use flower, you can use a little, you can use a lot. You really like that entourage effect
For sure.
of that experience. Do you feel like lately I've been reading books about spirituality and cannabis,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like that kind of fits your vibe, frankly,
100%. Yeah, for sure,
right?
man. That's
This
what it's all
whole
about.
idea of, you know, and culturally, this ganja culture of using it religiously and using it spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of shifting from this medical idea to a more experience based, like, I don't know, consumption.
Yeah.
And you're almost using it less. Like these guys are almost
Yeah.
using it less because they want to have that fast. They want to have that few days before they use it, they consume it, and then when you have that experience, it's a little more full.
Yeah. 100%.
And I feel like you can only get that with the flower.
I agree. You know, there's that's a personal choice for sure.
Sure.
I think a lot of other people can get there with other products for sure, but with me, it's definitely I tune into that side with flower a lot more. And speaking of, the whole ganja side of things, and smoking out of a chalice, and really being connected to it, like one of my biggest, as many cultivators or just people in the industry out there, one of my biggest idols in life was Bob Marley. Bunny Wailer,
Yeah.
Peter Tosh, all those guys. So it's a vibe. It carries a vibe. And speaking of just consciousness and whole and being holistic and aware, it kind of just is all one big lump sum, and that's how I view that experience for sure.
Yeah, there's this whole chapter on in cannabis and spirituality. I just finished the book, and there was this whole chapter about growing it and about how people will get really, really high, and they go out and dig in the dirt and just have this really tactile perception of the plant and that experience and that connection.
Mm-hmm.
And then the idea behind this, and I'm getting way off topic here, but I think it's fascinating, is the connection that people then have with the plant when they consume plants that are cared for like that. That's this whole chapter about, well, if you're really caring for the plants, then the plant's going to care for the people who consume them
Mm-hmm.
even
Yeah.
better, right? You're connected to that in a spiritual way. I think that's like a Utah, that would be a solid Utah thing.
Yeah, for
Right?
sure.
There's a lot of spiritual people here. Did you grow up Mormon?
When I was really young, yes, my dad went on a mission and everything, but he came back, and we went to church there for a few years, but we kind of just faded away from the church, man. And not to knock anybody, I think it's an awesome religion for a lot of people, but it just didn't really fit our lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And we just had a lot of different views, so we just kind of faded away. My younger brothers didn't really ever go to church. I have two younger brothers that are 3 years younger and 6 years younger than me, so they never really got that experience. It kind of faded away as I was younger. But yeah, I definitely grew up in that environment. My grandparents are still to this day very involved in the church. And yeah, I know all about that culture, man. And actually deciding to be in this industry and telling my family that I wanted to cultivate cannabis was a big deal, man. You know, it's you go and tell your grandparents who are very LDS that you want to grow this plant, and you know they look at you a little sideways, and you got to kind of give them the facts and talk them through it. But I'm very proud to say that they're very proud of what I'm doing, and they're all on board. They're actually patients themselves, so it's been a full 180 for them, and they're all on board for it. It's beautiful.
That's cool. I think it's hard even today. And you and I talk about cannabis all the time, you know, it's like
Hmm.
our whole life, but not everybody is like that. We really still are a small percentage of people who deal with it a lot. And it's hard for people to understand. It's kind of awkward to tell people almost.
Yeah,
People always ask me what I do for work, and you almost have to gauge them. I don't know. It's like I'm gauging how much I can say or how to
hmm,
say it. Do you feel like that now? Especially like I'm in the medical field. I can kind of lean on the, well, you know, I take care of patients, you
right,
know.
right. You know,
You're, what do you say? I'm a farmer.
honestly, no. I'll tell them
You just tell
exactly.
everybody.
I just tell them straight up, man. If you don't agree with it, then you know you're not somebody that I need to be around anyway. You know, like
Ah,
it's
yes.
it's kind of one of those things. It's like
It's like
I
its own filter.
right, exactly.
No, you know, it's like tattoos. You know, I got a
Yeah,
tattoo on my forearm. Part of the reason I got it there was because, well, if I'm wearing short sleeves and you're somebody who doesn't like it, then I got that out of the way right away.
right, a hundred
Right.
percent. But it's one of those things too. It's like I am open about it because I'd kind of like to represent the culture in a way and show people that it's not all about just getting stoned and being lazy and whatever the stigma might be in their mind. I like to show them that I'm a clear-headed person. I work hard. I'm a functioning member of society. This is just another way to go through life, and if you can't accept it, that's totally fine, man. We live in America. We're free. We get to do what
Mm-hmm.
we want to do, right? So if you don't agree with it, that's cool. No worries.
When you think about the future of the program here in Utah and beyond, like what do you want? Do you feel like we need to expand the program? Do you feel like it's going pretty well?
um Yeah, it's really tough because this is one of those things where I'm an employee of a company, and there's a reason why I settled with Standard Wellness, because I do agree wholeheartedly with what we're doing out there. But there are a lot of things that I would love to see changed, but that definitely comes down to legislation and working through that. That's a long process. But my personal views, this has nothing to do with Standard Wellness, but my personal views on the plant are that this is the people's plant. Everybody should be able to do whatever they want with this plant. They should be able to cultivate it, use it in any way they want, because looking at this medical program, there's a lot of avenues that it's missing. People like leaf tea, that's a product that
Mm-hmm.
we don't bring to the table. There's so many things missing from the board that a recreational outlook would kind of encompass, where a
Right.
medical wouldn't. I mean, I love the medical program. It
Mm-hmm.
definitely has a place. I think that the whole calculated outlook and approach to this plant is awesome. I want to see the research done, and people need very specific medicine, and I love seeing companies really try to tailor that and take care of very specific conditions and diseases. So I love the fact that there's a medical program, but I am 100% on board for this plant being available to everybody. I think that's the way that it should be, if you ask me.
Sure. I mean, it's going to take all of us, right,
Yeah, man.
to figure out how to move forward, because 100 years ago we basically just screwed this whole thing up.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes people, a lot of people, and it takes a lot of loud voices. But you know, with especially being in a state like Utah, I think there's a lot of people who are more worried about how they will be perceived from the outside. if you ask me, man, I know a lot of people that use this plant that would rather people not know that they use this plant, right? Like
Yeah,
kind of
still.
secret users. So there's a
Yep.
lot of supporters. I really feel like these numbers are vast, but what shows up on paper does not translate
R-
to our patient count and how big this program is in Utah. It just doesn't show the actual support that is behind this plant.
right. You're saying that you think there's a lot of people with or without cards who aren't buying product on the legal market, still using the black market or buying it out of state,
Yeah.
which is essentially the black market here, right? The secondary, I don't know what you would call it. Like there's the guy down the street you can buy it from. There's the, go to Nevada, you can buy it, go to Colorado. I don't know what you consider. I guess that's all black market in a way, but it's all this, maybe the secondary market. I don't know what they
I
call it,
mean
but
that's exactly
right.
it. It's so
It's people
fuzzy.
who are not buying it in state in the legal means.
Right.
I agree. I wish that we knew how many people there were like that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's because that patient count is low, very, very low. What is it? Something like 30,000 or
Yeah, it's 35, 37,000 right now.
yeah.
And they're losing, the state is losing about 23%. So a little more than 1 in 5 people are not renewing their card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Which
man.
that's a lot. That's a lot of people that either can't afford it, can't navigate it, various reasons why they're dropping out of the program. Maybe they're like, yeah, no, this isn't worth it. I want to buy stuff on the other market. But that seems to be, I don't know, we're never going to get it changed all the way unless we participate. It's a
Right.
participatory democracy,
Yep.
right? Like you've got to be involved or else things don't change in this country.
100%. Yeah. If you don't make your voice heard, then the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Right.
Right?
That's the whole saying. So yeah, we gotta march. We gotta do it, man. We gotta make it happen for ourselves. They're not just gonna give it to us.
How do you make this? Now I'm circling back to how you grow this stuff. You put all this weird shells and this organic material into the soil, and then you water it with special water.
So yeah, when you get your big mix, and then what I like to do is I'll add a fungus, a mycorrhiza, and you'll let that sit for a period of time to let it inoculate, so that that fungus goes to work and it starts eating its food. It's what they call developing a rhizosphere in your medium, and then you'll put your plant in there, and its root system actually works symbiotically with this mycorrhiza, and the mycorrhiza will eat the raw material in the soil that surrounds the roots, and the plant will trade what's called exudates with the mycorrhiza for nutrients, and it's a little symbiotic relationship. The mycorrhiza definitely doesn't have to be there. All that stuff will just happen naturally, but it happens a lot smoother, a lot faster with the fungus. So it's kind of like a little mini ecosystem that you're building.
Right. It eats something. It poops out fertilizer
Mm-hmm.
essentially, right, with the exudates, and then the plant eats that
Yep.
and
Exactly.
thrives.
Yep.
How'd you figure this all out? Did somebody teach you, or did you read the book, or like?
Both. I've had really cool mentors in my life, not just cannabis specific, but just kind of all encompassing gardening and horticulture in general. But yeah, there's a lot of books that I've dove deep into, the Cannabis Bible being one of them. Many books that I just nerd out on, highlights, just gotten tabs all through it. So it's a lot of self-taught, mostly self-taught as far as cannabis goes. But yeah, it's something that you grow with, and that's why I love this industry so much, is because you're never fully capped out. You're always learning something. There's always something new.
Are you where does Riley Meyer go from here, right? You're going to keep growing. This looks like a longer term project for
Hmm.
you, or what do you want to do?
That's another tough question. I have my views with this plant that aren't shared by everybody, and I'm always going to be pushing to deliver the highest possible quality plant or flower, so to speak, to the patient. And that doesn't always mean that it's, some 30% THC or just something that gets you super stoned. I would really like to get a 1-to-1 flower on the market, or a really awesome CBG strain, or start finding some CBN strains and really dialing in that flower for more medicinally specific purposes. But I'm all for that super high THC stuff. It all has its place for sure. But what I would really like to be involved in is a more specific approach to the patient. And what I really love is how, I'm not sure if they do it anymore. I'm not really up to date with California's laws and legislation, but last I heard they had caregivers out there. And I think it's really cool how connected the grower is to his buyers. And, if there's something that they really
Farmers
connect with,
market, right?
yeah, that whole approach.
That whole approach, yeah, that kind of local approach versus the 8 growers who can grow everything and then everything gets processed. And
Right.
you're kind of, even though you're not limited to cultivars or strains, as we call them, and because they're going to grow a nice variety, you still are limited to 8.
Right.
8 producers, not the guy down the road who is your friend or you really care about, you like his product, he cares about the plant. Going back to that spirituality thing, right? That connection to the earth with our community.
Yes, sir.
You still don't get that with Utah's program.
Right. That's definitely the big one for me, is that it's just not opened up. I feel like, I'm with Standard for a reason. I feel like they do have that approach, but then again, it's a business, man. And
yeah, I mean, they gotta recoup their investment,
right,
and it's a
right,
big cost.
right. And they, that the overhead that comes with that is real. Whereas you have a local farmer, that has his plot of land, that's working his soil. He's been working it for years. He's got his process. That's going to attract a certain group of people to want to be involved with him specifically, because in this industry, quality is always going to rise to the top. It's always going to, make a name for itself. And that's something that I think needs to be made available here. It needs to be opened up. There needs to be more options. I think that the companies here are doing a good job staying afloat. We could always do better for sure, but I really do. I wish there was more options, more availability.
Yeah. I'm not torn about that, but it makes you think, like, how do you get from here to there? And it really is in Utah. That's a long road.
Yeah.
There's definitely no talk about opening anything up like that.
Right.
Not in this session, probably not for a few sessions. Got to have some movement at the federal level before stuff like that happens.
Yes. Yep.
Some states probably doing better than others. But like you say, I mean, here we live in Utah and they have a good, we do have a good medical program from the medical side compared to a lot of other states.
For sure. Yeah.
Like, come on, you go to Texas and you can't hardly get access at all. North Carolina, if they pass that medical bill, boy, that's going to be a very, very limited, access. You've got to be basically on your deathbed.
Yeah.
In order to get access. And at least here, that's not the case.
That's another thing that's really cool about Utah, is at least they're giving us the chance, man. At least they're making it available. They're taking that leap of faith and handing it over. And I really respect that. But yeah, I do think that to really use this plant to its full potential, you got to turn it over to the people. I mean, there's a reason why it went 100 years through Prohibition. There's a reason why that culture has stayed intact the whole time. The people love this plant and they pushed it through all that BS, and they've, made their voices heard. And that's the reason why it's here today. So
sure.
Yeah.
What do you do for fun, Riley?
Oh man, a lot of stuff. I got too many.
Because
hobbies.
In the winter you ain't got shit to do now.
Yeah.
You got to. I mean, I'm sure you got to get ready for next year, and you got a lot of, whatever's going on in the indoor.
Right. Yeah.
But, I mean, you got plans for winter? Anything 100%. Fun planned?
Yeah, I got me a little pass to PC. Going to be using that Epic Pass this year. I'm been snowboarding since I was 8 years old. So that's a big, winter hobby for me. And that's kind of always been my another thing that coincided with being a cultivator was especially outdoor is that you work all summer, you get your check at the end of the season and then you go play. And that's my that's my whole thing, man. I love the snow, and what a place for it. Utah, it's awesome.
It's going to tie you here for a long time.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
I hope so. I love this state.
And it's like there's nowhere to go. I ski too, and I grew up here, and I've skied all my life, just like you. And people always ask me, "Oh, where have you been? Where have you been?" And I'm always like, "Well, where should I go?
Yeah, where do I have to go?
where do I have to go? I don't know. I go 45 minutes up the
Right.
road, and I'm there. I'm
Exactly.
where everybody wants to go.
Greatest snow on earth, man.
Yeah. Have you ever skied out of town?
I don't think I have. Like you said,
I hadn't till I was older. I was like in my mid 30s before I even went to Sun Valley.
Yeah.
Oh no, I went on my honeymoon to Sun Valley and we skied a couple of days. That was 21 years ago. And then, but I've never been to Tahoe.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've skied my whole life. I've never been to Tahoe, but I never feel like it's worth the money to leave here.
Right. No, I've heard a lot about a lot of really cool resorts. I mean, on my pass is Whistler, and I'm just looking at that every day, like, oh, I got to make the trip up there, man. I got to go to PC. But yeah, one of these days, I haven't yet though. It's definitely on the list.
Targhee is another place to go because that place is fire.
Yes, sir. That's what I hear.
It was so awesome last year. So awesome.
Yeah,
and it's awesome. Not that far.
Yeah, it's not too bad, right? And even Tahoe's not that bad. I mean, California or Nevada's right there. Yeah.
Yeah, you got the time.
I got the time, man. I got a couple of months here.
Yeah, good. Well, if you could grow any strain you wanted, what would you grow?
I would do my own breeding, man. I'd take a couple of strains and I would try to make some crazy concoction. But right now, with what's out there, I really like the stuff that's coming from Soul Rebel. Shout out to Soul Rebel. He's got a lot of really cool sativas coming down. But yeah, my number one strain I'd say is the good old Jack Herrera. I'm a big sativa guy, and in the flower world, I think people kind of look at you as a weirdo if you like sativa. But yeah, I'm a big sativa guy. I just like the terpene profile off that Jack Herrera. It's so distinct. It catches my nose anywhere. Like if somebody shows me a bag of Jack Herrera, I'll be able to tell you if it's the real deal or not just by that smell.
Oh, that is sweet. Okay, so I have goals now to be as good as you at recognizing like one strain. Okay, I'm going to get one strain. I'm going to learn how to recognize it, whether it's good or bad.
You got to find that one. You got to find that special one and stick with it.
So when Standard comes out, when does all this stuff come? Is it available now?
No. So we just got done clipping it into our totes. It's in the curing process right now. We're doing the finishing touches on our trim up, but we should be seeing that outdoor flower hit stores within the next few weeks. But that's another thing. The state, we have to go through the state.
They take their portion.
Yeah, they
take their cut. No, they take their testing cut.
Yeah, exactly. They take their time is what they do.
Yeah, they do
no dig, but they take their time. But yeah, it's really dependent on the state. We got an awesome team killing it right now. We should be done, within the next few weeks, packaged up and ready to send off. So,
okay, this episode will probably come out the week all that stuff comes out, and so hopefully that's the case.
Okay,
it'll come out within a couple of weeks, front or back of this episode for sure.
Sweet.
Is there anything else you want to talk about? You want to mention anything burning on your chest? You just got to get off your chest.
I would like to say for anybody out there that their passion is growing cannabis, just stay down, man. Just do anything that you can to get your foot in the door. Reach out, because that was me, not, a handful of years ago. That was me. I was just itching to get into this industry, and it was so daunting because there's people with huge reputations that get pulled from out of state and you got to be this master grower to just even get a look. But really, a pebble at a time. Just take a step at a time. Stay down. Don't get discouraged, because I know there's a lot of y'all out there who really want to be involved with this plant. And yeah, just don't quit. Don't give up. That's it.
Well, that's good. You've heard it from Riley Meyer, who is the local kid who became a cultivator here in Utah for medical marijuana.
Yes, sir.
It's pretty cool story, man.
Thanks,
I'm
Tim. I
happy for you.
appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate
I'm
it.
happy you're growing this stuff for us, and I look forward to giving some a try, frankly.
Yes, sir. Yeah, go
All
look
right.
for it. Standard Wellness.
All right, everybody, stay safe out there.